And set this up for me, because I understand from what I've read that one of the reasons why Fauci and EcoHealth and NIH were funding experiments in China was because they weren't subject to the same sort of oversight and regulation. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. We're actually suing the NIH right now for what we call the foreign animal lab loophole, which is essentially, so the NIH gives tax dollars or authorizes the use of tax dollars at about 1,500-ish labs around the world, animal labs around the world. Over 300 of those are in foreign countries. About 36 of them right now are in China and Russia. But China, Russia, any foreign country outside of the U.S., basically the oversight rules that apply in the United States that every lab, college, university, private lab, if they take tax money, they have to follow, which include having a committee that reviews projects, says whether they're too dangerous to do, like Wuhan, too cruel, duplicative, whether there's alternatives available, make sure biosafety rules are followed, all of that. There's committees that legally mandate in the United States. You take tax money, you have to have them, they have to review and approve projects. You don't have to do any of that outside of the country. So we discovered in 2019 that the U.S. was sending millions of tax dollars each year to labs in China, in Russia, all over the world, countries that definitely don't need our money, like Canada, like in the UK, Denmark, Norway. So socialist countries that are dumping plenty of money into science definitely don't need U.S. tax dollars. Their animal labs are getting money, and they don't have to play by the rules. So there's absolutely an incentive. We've incentivized, actually, offshoring and outsourcing some of these dangerous and cruel experiments because it's easier to do them.
Yeah.
I think Fauci probably would have found a way to do them in the United States. I mean, look, 3 years into the pandemic, we found out that he was funding Boston University to supercharge Omicron to make it from zero lethality to 80%. And no one seemed to raise a red flag about that or care very much until it became a media story.
And that was an EcoHealth project, right? I believe Boston was.
Boston was not an EcoHealth project. There's lots of other. EcoHealth has gotten over $20 million of new taxpayer-funded grants just since the pandemic began from NIH, DOD, USAID. So they're sitting pretty. They're fine. They have faced virtually no accountability at all for what happened in Wuhan and what role they might have played there. I think that's going to change now with Republicans running the House. I think there will be hearings. There will be subpoenas. They're going to have to answer some hard questions. But the damage is done. China has a 3-year head start on covering up how the pandemic started. We'll probably never know at this point.
Yeah.
And there's people who don't want us to know, like Anthony Fauci, like Peter Dash at EcoHealth. And I think like Fauci's deputy, who is now just installed as his successor, at least temporarily, who was involved in covering up the lab leak since February of 2020.